Super spy? More like super fly. We are the Spy-Fi guys, and this is Spies in Disguise.
Hello, welcome back to the Spy-Fi Guys, where we cover spy fact, spy fiction, and everything in between. I'm Zach, and this is Christian.
Hey.
And today we are talking about the movie we discussed in our very first intro episode, Spies in Disguise, an animated movie featuring Will Smith and Tom Holland.
Yeah, and this is our first animated movie, I think.
That's right.
And so we were lucky enough to go to an early screening, although by the time that you listen to this, it will be out in theaters already and potentially out on streaming or video services.
Also, as part of the intro screening, we got to meet a couple of the directors. There was two directors for this movie.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so as a result, because we saw it in a screening, we didn't really have time to take detailed notes, so we're just going to have to wing it.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess maybe we should talk about the characters first, then we'll talk about the story, and then we'll have talk about the message, because it's a kids' movie, so there's a message, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right, so let's get to the plot synopsis.
All right.
From IMDb, super spy Lance Sterling and scientist Walter Beckett are almost exact opposites. Lance is smooth, suave, and debonair. Walter is not. But when events take an unexpected turn, Walter and Lance suddenly have to rely on each other in a whole new way. And actually, that's a pretty good synopsis that doesn't give away the reveal, which, like we said, we talked about in our very first sort of microdot episode, where, Lance Sterling, super spy, turns into a pigeon.
And I have to say, I like the way the trailer did it better.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, it was more sudden and therefore funnier.
True. But I think, everyone's seen the trailer, so everyone knows the twist. So I like that, okay, the twist is out there, so now it's just more getting more reaction and more mileage out of it, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it certainly is the premise of the movie, so there's no point in hiding that.
In this movie, we start with a very young Walter, with his mom, who's a cop, and Walter is getting into hijinks. He is already, sort of a genius in creating gadgets.
Well, not only does he create gadgets, but he knows about human anatomy.
Yeah, I liked how a lot of the gadgets that he, pretends to, create at that point, he actually creates later.
Sure, I mean it's a good idea.
So his mom's a cop, and we find out later that she, died saving a bunch of people, and so that sort of motivates him later on.
Though it seemed to me like he was already pretty motivated to create gadgets and help people out, even from a very young age.
Yeah, so I think that just furthered the motivation.
And so she hugs him, presumably for the last time. It's heavily implied, and then leaves.
You think so? You think that she dies that day? I guess when we see the photo of her later, or photo of him, receiving the flag later, he's not that much older than shown in that image.
Okay, I mean that's the way I would have done it if I were.
You're probably right. Yeah,
it's just more dramatic. You know how these movies like to be dramatic. Yeah. So we fast forward 14 years to Lance Sterling, played by Will Smith, on a mission.
So he's on a mission somewhere in Japan. I don't remember exactly where, and he's tracking down this arms dealer named Katsu Kimura, who has. Well, we don't know at the time, or do we? I forget if we knew or not what he's selling. I think we do actually know. He's selling some sort of killer drone, basically.
Yeah, they said he's an arms dealer, and then they revealed that he's selling this murder bot, which apparently people love to make in spy movies.
Well, what I found even more interesting is that the murder bot was developed by the agency, which they never actually name what spy agency they're with, but whatever mysterious spy agency they're with. But it was developed by the agency and stolen from them. So why do you have it? This seems like a terrible idea.
I mean, we already have killer drones. It's just not as killer as this one.
And these things, keep going forever. It said they run on solar energy or something.
Yeah, it reminded me of a combination of the murder dog bot from that one episode of Black Mirror and the robot from The Incredibles.
I also thought about, and given that it's Tom Holland, I also thought about Mysterio's drones.
Yeah, especially when there's like a million of them later on.
And then they're also in Venice.
Yep, yep. That's you can tell. I think it's just a coincidence, but it is
That is
kind of funny
definitely
that
a
it worked
coincidence, but
out.
it's yeah. Um,
Okay,
but
so
yes,
anyway, so Lance Sterling is like the man. He can fight
he's
everybody, no
he's your
problem.
stereotypical movie spy, over the top, um, with his puns, his gadgets, his tuxedo. It's a James Bond model, but taken to the nth degree.
Well, and that's sort of my issue I had with it, which is it's just Archer. His name is even Sterling.
Huh? I didn't never occurred to me actually. I never thought about it.
Yep. Well, it
What I
occurred to
thought
me.
about is, this is basically what it would look like if we had a Idris Elba James Bond,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
I could see that too.
I'd be fine with. But yeah,
So I guess now's the time to talk about this. So I don't know. Do you feel like people? I in my sort of circles, I feel like Will Smith has sort of people don't like him as much as they used to. Would you say that's true?
I would say that's true. I think a lot of his movies have sort of been misses lately, and fun enough, with the exception of Aladdin, which was made a ton of dough at the box office. But Gemini Man, I don't really hear anyone talking about it. Or he had a string of movies that were him really trying to win that Oscar. We've talked about like £7, or
Oh,
the one about concussions,
and the
or
one about the pursuit of happiness.
yeah, yeah.
So
So,
I still like Will Smith. I know that's not exactly a controversial opinion,
I
and
mean, I think this is him at almost his best, really, in the last few years, other than the Genie, which I just thought he did a really good job with. But I like him when he's trying to be funny and trying to be Will Smith, and not trying to be dramatic actor Will Smith.
well, they say that Will Smith plays the same role in every movie, but that one role is just really likable,
hmm And
and
I
that's
mean,
definitely true here.
it's like Tom Cruise. If you have something that you can do really well, why not keep doing it?
Sure, especially if people like it. There were people in the our preview audience with us who were like, "Yeah, Will Smith, he's great. We'll see him in anything." So he does his
Yeah.
mission, and he like, there's a part where he fights like 100 Yakuza soldiers, which the directors told us was basically a homage to Kill Bill.
When he's fighting, when the bride is fighting the crazy 88s.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the first time we see so according to Wikipedia, Ben Mendelsohn's character, the main villain, is named Killian. I don't think we've ever heard his name.
Yeah,
He's
they just
just
called him
Robo
Robot
Hand.
Hand,
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
So you know what? Just for art, because I'm never going to remember the name Killian. Let's just call him Robo Hand. So Robo Hand is the buyer of the drone,
Mm-hmm.
and we see him. He comes in, and as they're trying to do the deal, that's when Lance Sterling comes in, enters, beats up a bunch of Yakuza, and he, fights off the giant army and uses one of his gadgets that he thinks is going to be a grenade.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out what it is it causes a giant projection of kittens and release. And so all the Yakuza are staring up and saying, "Aw," for the kitties, and made happy by the glitter.
Which we know is Tom Holland's character, Walter, is involved because in the scene before, he was talking about how you can use glitter to incapacitate people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try this at home, though.
Yeah. But yeah, so Walter escapes and goes after Robohand, who has gotten the drone already,
Mm-hmm.
and does a really cool move where he puts a bomb underneath this giant gong, stands on top of the gong, uses it to propel himself upward through the roof, and right through the open doors of the helicopter, during which he grabs the case that's holding the bomb.
Pretty impressive stuff. I don't understand how he was able to survive being smashed between a gong and a roof of a building.
I also thought about that. I assume he probably had some sort of, device that shot through the
like some kind of mini explosive
that we just didn't see.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The point is, he's the man. He can do anything he wants and looks good while doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so he returns to his headquarters. So the headquarters of the agency is located in DC. Shout out DC,
Hmm.
and underneath the reflecting pool near the Washington Monument.
All sorts of crazy stuff's been down there in movies.
Yeah, I believe what is it actually? And I'll bring this up again. This movie up again. Get Smart. Their like backup headquarters is underneath the reflecting pool.
Nice. Also, in this scene, we see that Lance can apparently drive right next to the Lincoln Memorial.
Yep.
I guess being a spy has its privileges. You can drive in places where other people are not allowed to drive.
Hmm.
So he gets back. He meets the head of the agency, played by Reba McEntire.
And just to sort of hammer in the fact that he is the man, when he's coming in, everyone's sort of fawning over him into headquarters. Everyone's fawning over him, which reminded me of a scene pretty much shot, like almost shot for shot, that happens when The Rock enters into Get Smart's headquarters.
The Rock is in the Get Smart movie?
He is, yes. And he is,
Oh.
the man, basically. It's
I
interesting.
want to see him more now.
Yeah. This movie, it feels like it took a lot of tropes from a lot of movies and then sort of mixed it up and did their own thing with it, but it's very, very trope heavy, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, the director said that they were making it as a homage to spy movies of the 60s, and maybe you were able to pick out better than I could. I couldn't really see very much other than James Bond.
It's really that. I mean, when you're talking spy movies of the 60s, that's like, especially fun ones. I mean, you might have some of your Le Carre films that were made in that decade, but they're not fun like this is.
Okay, so he comes in, everyone's like, "You're great, you're awesome," which I kind of want to see that happen to James Bond. You think he'd be pretty popular in the agency, considering how many times he saved the world. Instead, they're always like, "Ugh, this guy again." Oh, actually, so that reminds me of earlier when Lance Sterling was like, "I'm surrounded by 70 guys, but I'm going in anyway," and then they were like, "No, don't do it," but he's like, "I'm going in," and then they get mad at him. There's a part just like that. I think I told you about it in one of the James Bond comics. So there's a part where Bond is infiltrating a bad guy base, and he's talking to his HQ, and they're like, "Don't go in, wait for backup." He's like, "I'm going in anyway," and they just kind of sigh, and they're like, "Okay, as usual."
Yep.
I thought that was hilarious.
Like Bond. Yep.
So he comes in, but he's mad. Everything seems fine, but he actually is on the warpath to find Tom Holland's character.
Well, he's mad because someone replaced his grenade with a thing that showed off kittens and glitter. And so he goes down to their equivalent of the Q branch. All right, where can I find the person who did this? And they all point to Walter. And so he goes over to Walters and is like, you messed with my stuff. Don't mess with my stuff. And so
already I'm pro Will Smith, and I'm sort of anti Tom Holland, or not anti Tom Holland, anti his character, because I know we have some Tom Holland fans in the audience, I'm sure. But I was like, Will Smith is justified. You can't go and mess with soldiers' equipment.
True.
To me, that is a fireable offense, and he deserved it.
Ouch. Walter shows off some of his other gadgets, including, the inflatable hug, which surrounds you in a very protective shell, which I thought that's a useful gadget. That's not and then apparently we find out that the glitter thing is called kitty glitter. And I feel like all of his other inventions also have very, pun names, which I enjoyed. But yeah, so Will Smith, Lance Sterling fires Walter, which makes me wonder, all right, does he have the power to fire him? Like, they're not in the same org chart.
No, he probably doesn't have the authority to fire him. But he may have passed it through the ranks or whatever. I mean, this one I'm inclined to forgive because it's a movie and we sort of have to move the plot along.
True.
But like I said, I think Walter deserved to be fired for that.
All right, okay. In a Rio situation, yes, definitely. In this sort of very stylized movie verse where a spy can fire a tech, less so.
But see, I don't know. So I don't want to criticize Troy and the other fella for their movie making, but consider this, all right? What if Tom Holland, or what if Walter walks up to Lance and says, I have all these gadgets, I have all these ideas, I can make you disappear, which is one of the key points. And
that
Lance just blows him off. And then later, when Lance needs him, he's at home.
I mean, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, so then just drop the whole thing of him sabotaging Lance's equipment and then getting fired.
I don't know. I think you need that because you need to show that his stuff can work. Otherwise, we don't have any idea. It could just be, stuff that looks theoretical, but we don't know that it works at all.
Well, okay, that's fine. But I guess this is sort of starting a larger problem I have with Walter, but I guess we'll get to that later.
All right. So yeah, where were we? Sterling goes into the meeting with the head of the agency, whose name is Joy, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And, he brings in the case, and he's like, oh, I'm so great, here's the case. And, of course, the case is empty. Then there's no drone in there.
Mm-hmm. Classic misdirection move by a bad guy.
And then we enter in Rashida Jones's character, Marcy, who's basically in affairs for the agency, and says that, it's missing because he stole it. And apparently they have footage of someone right after his mission, someone going else with that and killing someone else with the drone. And that person has Lance Sterling's face. Which,
in an era of like deep fakes and like messing with video footage and stuff, is not really the ironclad evidence that it used to be, especially since this movie claims to be taking place in the present day. Also, I'm like, so why would Lance Sterling steal the drone, kill someone with it, and then walk into headquarters with an empty case?
Very good point.
It just doesn't make any sense, but I mean, whatever.
It doesn't make sense, and that's why Internal Affairs needs to investigate.
Speaking of internal affairs, she actually says, I'm internal affairs.
Oh, does she?
Come up with like a euphemism or whatever, yeah. She's also joined by the Eyes, which is played by Karen Gillan, doing her real Scottish accent.
I liked that it was actually her accent and not her doing an American accent.
Mm-hmm. And the Ear, played by DJ Khaled.
Who I didn't know acted.
Well, he barely did acting in this movie. He basically just read lines off a page. But
I mean, it worked though, because he is, as a DJ. So Eyes and Ears, they were, their specialty. Eyes' specialty is optics, and Ears is, sonics, which makes sense for a DJ.
Mm-hmm. So Lance Sterling is like, well, I'm not going to go down. So he gives them the slip and successfully escapes the agency, despite a couple of close calls.
And he goes and so he hides out in his car somewhere, in an alleyway somewhere, and is like, all right, I need to, this is bad. I need to disappear. He remembers Walter and his pitch. It's saying he can disappear. And so goes to find Walter at his home, and this is, this is, again, another movie thing. It's like, all right, if he's already like disavowed or whatever, how does he still have access to all the files?
It's like somebody just forgot to revoke his clearances.
I guess that, I can believe that, because I can believe government working very, very slowly in terms of moving things around like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is happening in like a matter of minutes, if not hours.
True. Okay, so he finds Walter at home, and Walter is busy. He's basically turned his whole house into a lab. And he's busy trying to, trying to perfect his technology, which will allow people to disappear. Although he doesn't exactly tell Lance how it makes someone disappear.
Nor the audience, really. I was like a little confused. So I was like, okay, so there's a feather, and he puts a feather in a thing, and then he puts a drop of liquid on it, and then the feather disappears.
Right. So maybe it's like some sort of invisibility thing, and not necessarily turning you into a pigeon.
Well, it's invisibility, but only for feathers.
Yeah.
What if you don't have feathers? I don't know.
But yeah, so Lance finds him at home as he's just perfected the formula, and Lance, and Lance is like, that next generation, what did he call it? Next generation disappearing.
It's some kind of like technobabble thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
effectively disappearing potion.
Yeah. So he's like, where, do you have it on hand? And Tom Holland's like, I have it in hand,
Mhm.
and Lance not paying attention because he thinks that Walter's beneath him. He's like, I was like, do you want anything to drink? And is it sure? And then he grabs the vial. First of all, who grabs a vial and drinks it?
People who always think that they know what's best.
Okay.
He
So he
probably
drinks
just
it.
wasn't thinking.
And then, so unlike the trailer, as we said before, the transformation sequence is much more extended, including Lance getting a hand that's smaller than the other, a baby hand,
Right.
which made me think about Deadpool for a second.
Sure. It's also very American Werewolf in London or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like the really long transforming, like body horror kind of sequence.
Except with a dose of trippiness, and then apparently on endorphins kicking in, so that because the next part will be extremely painful.
Yeah, that was that was kind of funny.
So I thought, like I said, I did it well. And again, since everyone, well, or at least anyone who's seen the trailer knows that that's a twist, I think it's better to make it not the twist and just pull every laugh you can out of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, sure. If you're the kind of person who finds a pigeon doing things pigeons are not supposed to do, the height of hilarity, this is the movie for you.
And I quite enjoyed it.
I'm glad you did.
But yeah, so he turns into a pigeon and
freaks out.
And Walter all this time is spouting out facts about pigeons and why they make the best spies, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Including the fact that they have 360 vision, so you can't sneak up on a pigeon. They can fly 90 miles an hour, and that they can see almost in slow motion.
That's true. So these are all big advantages. He also points out that pigeons are really popular in every major city.
Mm-hmm.
And however, the fact that the Lance pigeon is blue is a little bit concerning about that.
Blue, and also has like a little bow tie on him as part of his feathering, which...
Well, you'd have to be looking pretty closely to see that. The bow tie didn't bother me too much.
Oh no, I like the bow tie. I thought it was a nice touch, but it makes no actual sense of why it would be there. But it's a cartoon, so you just go with it.
Right. So they escape, and there's a pretty funny sequence where Lance is like, I don't need your help, but then he can't get into his own car because he's a pigeon.
Mm-hmm. Well,
meanwhile the agency's the IA task force is like totally taking apart Walter's house.
Yeah, I kind of felt terrible at that part. I was like, oh no, his house. And like, especially if that's the same house that he lived in with his mother and they're just destroying it. I'm like, I don't feel great about that. Especially if that's the house that he, lived in with his mother, and the upper deck that he looked like he was trying to build on the house all, got wiped out. It's like, ooh, that's not really funny, but okay.
Well, the visual contrast of them like sitting there talking about it while behind them, everyone's like going nuts. I appreciated that.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, I like that, but
I think it was worth it for that. So then they drive away, but then they get chased, and we have a actually pretty good car chase scene through the streets of DC Alexandria.
Yes, which so one of the questions that the question that I asked of the directors is, how much research did you do about DC? And they said that definitely came and visited the city and walked around just to get the feel of it. And they did point out that in their film, Alexandria is much closer to the mall than it actually is.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot less traffic in the movie. Yeah. Doing a car chase in the real DC is effectively impossible because there's just cars everywhere.
True. Although, Winter Soldier did a pretty good car chase, but in DC, although they filmed in like Cleveland or something. But yes, so they do a chase, and of course the whole time Tom Holland and Will Smith are fighting over, all right, are we using offensive gadgets or, things that will disable but not actually kill people?
Yeah, well, there's a part where Will Smith wants to use missiles on tires, and even then Tom Holland is like, no, stop.
I mean, you could miss, and also it's a missile. It's going to make something explode. I'm almost on Tom Holland's side, especially oil slick. It'll make them slip, but not necessarily kill them.
Well, except when they actually use the oil slick, they light everything on fire.
Because they were going backwards.
Well, yeah. Okay, so I will continue to withhold my opinion about Walter until we get a little bit later. So they use their oil slick. They manage to get away, and then they have to figure out their next move.
Yeah, and so their next and Sterling realizes that okay, the only other person who knows that Robo Hand exists is Kimura. So they figure out where he's going, and he's going to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get on Lance Sterling's private jet and fly there.
And we also get revealed that Walter can build an antidote to the pigeon transformation. It just takes him a little bit of time to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine because in the meantime we get some funny pigeon hijinks,
including the fact that so being that this is a kid movie, there's some toilet humor in here, but I thought it was effective.
I thought it was gross. It's
Yeah.
not just toilet humor, but like vomiting humor.
Okay,
and, like,
see the
eating gross
vomiting,
stuff
I
humor.
was yeah, that was too much for me, especially when he would. So we had there was so when we get to Mexico, there's a few other birds to become a part of Sterling's flock, including Walter's pet pigeon Lovey, and then you also have another pigeon named Jeff, and one who doesn't actually get a name but is called Crazy Eyes.
I liked the Jeff. I like Jeff. I thought that was funny when he was like I don't remember how they bring up that his name is Jeff, but
he just calls him Jeff, and he's like, wait, and Walter's like, wait, you can talk to them, and he's like, wait, his name's actually Jeff.
Yeah. So yeah, how they meet is when they all eat the same piece of trash. That was kind of gross.
Yeah.
But anyway, but moving on. So they make their way up to the bad guy's tower, penthouse. There's a scene where Will Smith tries to intimidate him by just speaking to him,
which I thought was pretty good. All right, yeah, he can't see him, so yeah, it'll work.
I mean, it's another good example of Lance Sterling trying to do everything by himself despite his pigeon status.
Yeah.
And maybe it could have worked, except it didn't.
It could have worked, except the flock, disrupted him.
Mm. So there's a fight, and it looks like Will Smith's gonna get killed, which he easily could be killed as a pigeon. Tom Holland shows up and hits Kimura with like a knockout gas, and then it's a gas that turns his bones into like liquid or whatever.
Which I have questions about. How?
I don't think it literally turns his bones into liquid. I think it just makes him all floppy.
Yeah.
Which the directors told us was terrible to animate because Kimura is covered with tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't animate every tattoo, it was going to look really bad. So thanks to the animators for making that happen.
Yeah. But yeah, so he also uses a very potent and effective truth serum on him, and Kimura reveals that he doesn't know who he is or where he's going, but he knows what this plan is, and his plan is to steal the list of all the agents, so like the knock list in the first Mission Impossible, and then use that to combine it with the drone to kill every single agent, like in Winter Soldier.
Yep. And didn't they try to do that in Skyfall too?
In Skyfall there was also a list of all of the agents that is stolen, and that using technology to kill all those agents, which gets dropped in Skyfall and never picked up again.
Yeah, wow.
But we're not talking about Skyfall tonight.
Okay, so they get where they need to go, but then IA is back, and someone pointed out to me, one of our friends after we saw the movie, that apparently this agency can operate in international areas without any kind of repercussions.
This is very true. Yeah, it's So I had questions. So it's apparently a U.S. and they specifically call it out as a U.S. governmental agency. But, and we'll see this later, they can operate seemingly anywhere, and they have stations in their storage facility for their knock list is in Venice, of all places.
Well, I mean, that just gave them an excuse to go to Venice.
True.
But I like to think that they can fast track warrants to go overseas a lot faster than they can revoke Sterling's clearances to get into stuff.
Sure. Let's go with that.
Yeah, that one guy in the bureaucracy really had his act together. So Actually, this is the only vomit joke I like, which is when Rashida Jones trips and falls onto Kimura, and then she starts to throw up, and then he starts to throw up.
Really? You like? Actually, no, because they don't actually show vomit. So
Yeah,
yeah, I appreciated that.
I
Whereas,
thought because my grandmother was a sympathy vomiter.
uh,
I never actually got to witness it, but I've been told
but you've been
that when
told that.
someone throws up, she'd go, "Oh my," and then walk to the next room and also throw up.
Oh, ooh, that's. Mm-mm.
Yeah, so this is a little funny. So then they try to get Tom Holland to escape via a jumping puzzle, like
Hmm.
something out of a video game, and it fails, and yet somehow succeeds anyway.
Yeah. Well, he uses his gadgets and also just being a cartoon. Yeah, he'd definitely be dead if it wasn't a cartoon.
Well, this was probably my second favorite part of the movie, which all the crazy dodging and
Hmm.
gadget use and close calls. I was like, this is what the whole movie should have been.
Oh yeah, so they escape, and then go over to Robohand, who is going to the where is it? Oh, I don't remember. Somewhere in the North Sea, which is where
Right.
their their experimental tech development is, and pretty much kills uses the Lance Sterling disguise. He has a holographic disguise.
It was kind of funny how a couple of random soldiers are like, "Hey, what's up, Lance Sterling? How's it going?" Like they're like best friends. So
uh,
yeah, also in this part, Ben Mendelsohn talks a lot, and we see he's doing some kind of accent.
I think that's just his natural accent because he's Australian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, he was talking differently than when he was director Krennic.
Well, that
Uh,
then he's trying to do sort of a British quasi accent that they do for Imperial
okay.
accent.
All right. So I guess that's
Yeah,
just what he normally sounds like. So
yeah,
never
and
mind.
does that. I think he has his normal accent in Captain Marvel as well.
Okay. So anyway, so he takes over the facility and he brings the drone with him, and it's revealed that he's going to build a bunch more drones.
Hmm. And then so we go over to where do we go next?
Venice.
Oh, that's
They're
right.
like, we have to go to Venice to get the thing,
To get the
and
list.
to get the list, they find this big building where it looks like where the list is supposed to be, but Rashida Jones beats them there
Hmm. And we also have a
through Venice.
heart-to-heart moment between Marcy and Walter. And there, she's trying to convince him, just turn in Lance Sterling. I can get you your job back. I can get you anything you need. Your tech is amazing and you should be able to use it. And then, that's what, for people who weren't paying attention to the photos in the background, that's when you get the reveal that his mom has passed away and she, sacrificed her life to save a bunch of people.
Hmm.
But this is the first time that Lance knows about this, and so you can see as he's there in pigeon form, him reacting like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Also, in this point, it's like she's like Walter finally is offered what he's always wanted, which is people
Hmm.
to respect him.
Exactly,
But despite all that, he still doesn't give up his new pigeon friend.
and he also knows that if he does, there's no way that they're going to actually stop Robohand.
Hmm. That's
So
true.
yeah, so there's another chase, and the building behind them explodes because there's Robohand there again in Lance Sterling
Hmm.
disguise, and he's stealing the list, and so Lance and his flock and also Walter go after him. And I realized actually at this point we don't know what happened to IA. Like they're there, and I guess they're trying to fix it. But oh, that's right, they get trapped.
They get
They get
trapped. Oh yes,
yeah,
yes, yes. There's
they
the
get
there's a they get trapped under like this iron cage of some
yeah.
sort.
That's right. That I'm like, wait, why were not there? Oh, it's because they got trapped, and they see Walter, and he's like, "Help us!" No, I'm gonna go get him. Don't worry.
I mean, we're gonna go get him. I mean, I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
oh,
get him.
yeah.
But eventually, the whole thing concludes in this plaza in Venice where there's pigeons everywhere.
In St. Mark's Square specifically.
Okay, has that been in
Yeah.
other spy movies?
Uh, Actually, yes, it has been in Casino Royale. Also, it is the one of the plazas, and also in Moonraker, and it's one of the plazas you see in Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade when they go to Venice. It's a
Nice,
very famous landmark in Venice, and also famous for the pigeons.
nice.
Actually, in Moonraker, it's the site of the infamous double take pigeon, which sees Roger Moore and does a double take.
That I have heard of, though it's been a while since I've seen Moonraker.
Yeah. So yeah, so literally famous for having all these pigeons. So we have Walter, who's they had thought they had escaped, and then they get hit by Robohand, and they go down, and Robohand's basically right about to kill Walter because he's not going to tell him where Lance Sterling is, and Lance distracts him by shouting, and he's like, "Wait, where is he?" And Walter grabs a bunch of gluten-free bird feed from his pocket, throws it up, and Rowan's like, "Bread? You threw breadcrumbs at me?" And then he realized, "Oh crap, there's like a million pigeons here," and they all come and attack him in sort of a bird-nado.
Yeah, it was something like out of Alfred Hitchcock. Though I have a feeling that if it were not a cartoon, if you just threw a bunch of birdseed on like one of your friends, I don't think a million pigeons would attack them.
Maybe not. Depends on how hungry the pigeons were.
So I don't want to like second guess the directors, but I would have it be something like Lance be like, "Fellow birds, kill." I mean, they've already established he can talk to pigeons.
True.
Why not just take that extra step?
Maybe.
But either way, it worked. So they get away, but I think Robohand still has the list.
Yes, he does. And so they get away, and they take Lance's secret sub. But Walter reveals that during that whole Birdnado thing, he planted a tracker on him, which is pretty good spy work.
But he does it in this really smug manner that really annoyed me. And I guess now's the time to bring it up. I did not like Walter.
Really?
He annoyed me a lot.
All right, I liked him.
So my feelings are on him is when he is at a disadvantage, like when he's trying to get something out of Lance. He's not that whiny, but he's like, "Come on, just come on, just give me a chance." And then when he has the advantage over Lance, he's like really like he like talks down to him. He's like, "Did we lose him? Oh, I could get you back, sure." It's like, why do you have to do it like that? And the thing is, also, at this point, Lance has got his comeuppance, okay? So Lance is like, "Yes, I was kind of an arrogant blowhard in the beginning of this movie, but I'm recognizing now that you, Walter, can help, you have things to bring to the table too." And I'm just not sure I don't think it's gone the opposite direction. I don't think it ever goes the opposite direction. I don't think Walter ever gets his comeuppance in the movie.
He doesn't need his comeuppance. He's had his comeuppance his whole life with people calling him weird and saying his gadgets don't work. So this is his moment, I think.
Well, okay. We'll come back to this because I have more thoughts about that.
Okay. Yeah, so and at this point also, he perfects the
formula.
The formula turned him back.
Yes.
And so he uses it and turns him back.
And when he turns it back, he's naked, which I like because I don't really like it how in movies when people transform into animals, all their clothes transform too. That never makes any sense.
And if you go back to when he transformed in the first place, he's standing in a pile of his own clothes. So makes sense that he would be naked when he came back. And I was wondering how they were going to deal with that.
There you go.
And apparently Walter planned ahead and brought him his own tuxedo. So how he changed in that tiny sub, with Walter still there, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, maybe it's like a spy tuxedo where it's like Iron Man. You just hit a button, or the Flash's suit where it comes out of the ring and it just appears all around you.
I can buy that.
Or there's a funny scene a deleted scene where he's like awkwardly trying to put his clothes on.
I feel like they probably want to do that, but couldn't figure out how to do that without, just showing naked Lance Sterling.
You already showed a naked butt once.
Might
as well just keep going. Okay, so they use the sub and they get to Robohand's like hidden super secret super villain base.
Well, no, it's not it's not the super villain base. It is the research lab where he was developing all the other drones.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize it was the same place.
Yeah, that's the same place.
Okay, so they get there, and then once again we have the same conversation they've been having this whole movie, where Lance is like, "I have to do this alone," and Walter's like, "No, I can help."
And he could help. That's the point.
Mm-hmm. So Lance goes in, and we get some pretty good action scenes. Lance destroys a drone, destroys a robo drone,
and it's never shown how though.
I wanted to know how as well.
I mean, he does have the exploding cufflinks or any number of gadgets on his tuxedo, so probably one of those.
Sure, but I mean, like, come on. I would have, whatever. I would have liked
There
to have
was
seen it,
also
but I can live with that.
my wife who watched this movie with us at the screening was like, "All right, is this like because it starts in like a broken down greenhouse? Is like, oh wait, so is this the mansion from Skyfall?" I was like, maybe. And then there's some there's some moments, especially where like some of the lighting is very much like the beginning of some scenes in Skyfall. So I was like, okay, I can see where some of the influence is.
It also reminded me of The Incredibles again.
With
The
robot, yeah.
lava lair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at this point, he defeats one drone, and then Robohand's there, and he's like, well, I see how you fared against one drone. What about 1,000? And all, they're all revealed, and Lance gets beat up and captured, and he's shown like a screen, the multiple screens with all of the agency personnel, and all of them have targets acquired on them.
Even like the normal people, like the people who work the security desk and stuff, not just the field agents.
Which reminded me of that scene from Winter Soldier, where you have all of the Project Insight helicarriers, locking in on targets.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so they foolishly leave Lance Sterling there instead of just shooting him. Classic spy move. And they even leave him by himself, which allows Tom Holland to get in and free him.
So you skipped over. So there's a part where during that scene where they see all the targets acquired, and there's a proximity alert that goes off, and you find Tom Holland's come back on the sub for Lance, and so they send some drones after him, and they blow up the ship.
Right, which is also from The Incredibles.
Mm-hmm. And true, I didn't think about that. But yes, so Lance thinks that Walter's dead, and this is my thing. So he keeps saying, he says you can't lose anyone else. My theory about Lance Sterling is that he had worked with partners before, or teams before, and he saw all of them got killed, and that's why he's very much macho. I have to do this myself. I'm a lone wolf kind of thing because I don't want anyone else to die.
Well, I don't think that's the theory. I think he said that. Right?
Not specifically. He says that I can't see anyone else die, but I'm just like, this has definitely happened. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he didn't explicitly say it was like a partner or a fellow spy or whatever.
Yeah.
So they leave Lance Sterling alone, and then it's revealed that Tom Holland survives along with the other pigeons.
Using the inflatable hug or something.
See, I thought in this part, Tom Holland was going to turn himself into a pigeon.
I also had that potential thought. But
then how would he carry all
underwater?
How would he carry all of his gadgets around?
Yeah.
Since it's been established that your equipment doesn't transform along with you.
Yeah. I don't think we ever saw how he escaped. I assume it was with the inflatable hug.
I think they did say the inflatable hug.
Oh, did they call it out? I don't remember. Yeah.
Also, at this point, he walks in while he's listening to some Japanese TV drama on his headphones, which makes no sense, and gets back to what I was saying about him before. But we don't have to go back into that. So he frees Lance, and Lance is like, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'm so glad to see you. We're a team, and let's go take on Robohand."
And they do it using all of his gadgets.
Yeah, so this is probably my third favorite part of the movie, which is just this epic battle with the IA people show up, and they're all fighting the drones together while Tom Holland tries to hack his hand, the Robohand.
Yeah.
Because apparently the Robohand controls the drones. And in this part, there's not too much to say. It's a good action scene. I felt like there wasn't too much to say about this part.
Maybe just that they use all the gadgets. There's one all of Tom Holland's gadgets, so stuff including stuff we hadn't seen before. And one of my personal favorite gadget, which is the serious string, silly string, but not silly.
Yeah, so it's like web fluid.
Yeah.
So the only thing I wanted to mention in this part is that there's a part where they're fighting, and Walter's like, hang on just a little bit longer, and Lance is like, it's easier for you to say, you're not the one getting beat up.
This is true, yeah.
And Walter says, right, we have different skill sets. That's what makes us such a good team. So that's sort of what I was trying to say before about Walter getting his comeuppance. And it's not that I wanted him to get his comeuppance, because you're right that he's had a tough life. It's more that I wanted him to acknowledge that he isn't always right all the time. He doesn't know. He's not I felt he came off as like a little bit of a know-it-all throughout most of the movie.
I can kind of see how you're going with that, but I didn't get that vibe.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because Will Smith's so charismatic that I'm inclined to side with him all the time. But like, so I feel like there should have been a scene. Maybe there was a scene that got cut where where it's like a little bit more explicit, where he's like, "You're good at fighting, you're good at adventure, physical stuff, and I'm good at this other."
Maybe, yeah. No, I can see how. Yeah, maybe it would have benefited from that, but I didn't get as strong of a vibe about that as you did. Apparently,
okay.
There was also a scene where they used the kitty glitter again, and I just love this line from RoboHand where he's like, "Are those birds wearing tiny backpacks?"
I also like that even the kitty glitter worked on the bad guy, because usually stuff like that doesn't work. There's also a funny scene where Lance and Rashida and RoboHand are all fighting, and then they all get hit by the truth serum.
Oh yes, but yeah. So that reveal, and during that, when they get they reveal certain things like Rashida Jones has like 9 cats apparently.
All named after New Kids on the Block.
Oh, it was 5 cats. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they also reveal that Tom Holland's their plan, that Tom Holland's trying to hack the RoboHand.
I thought that was really smart.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good way of using truth serums. That sometimes it hurts the heroes too, not just the bad guys.
But yeah. So and then RoboHand he realizes this and goes after Tom Holland and also tries to escape. He realizes, if I escape and you don't hack the hand, I can still do this again. So he goes, and Tom Holland uses the serious string to, like a web shooter, basically, to hold on to him. Will Smith grabs onto Tom Holland, and he grabs onto his backpack to make sure that RoboHand doesn't get away, but the backpack breaks. And so they go RoboHand and Walter go up into the clouds, and as his backpack falls, out pops a vial of the serum, and then on top of it falls a feather. And of course, we know where that's going.
So I was pretty sure that there was a part in Spider-Man where he like attaches to the Green Goblin or something, and they go high up into the air. I think it might have been in the 90s cartoon, not one of the movies.
I feel like that happens in the movie too.
I just can't remember. I didn't see the ones with Andrew Garfield, so maybe it happened in one of them.
Maybe.
So anyway, so they go up to the top. They go up really high in the air, and Ben Mendelsohn was like, or RoboHand was like, "So if you want to stop me, you're going to have to kill us both."
And you're no killer.
Walter uses the inflatable hug, I think.
Yeah, he does.
He puts it around Ben Mendelsohn. The drone gets destroyed. Everything gets deactivated, but Walter is falling presumably to his death until the pigeons come.
Yeah. So Lance and his flock come to save Walter. Would this be feasible, like physics-wise? So I know that they can fly fast, but can they carry loads like that? Like even amongst like 5
a human, they probably can't carry humans. But whatever. I mean, at this point, we've gone so far out of the realm of normality that I wanted to ask the directors that, but I didn't want to like cause any problem.
I'm sure they probably thought about it, and who knows? Maybe they I would have maybe added if they added more pigeons, or was there more than just the 4? Were there other pigeons too?
Yeah, a bunch of other generic pigeons.
Okay, so maybe.
So they rescue Walter. Everybody's happy. They get their jobs back eventually.
So we think let's not skim over that. I like the fact that they, Walter's like, they crash land, and it's also like this. We saved the day. We got the list. We're definitely getting our jobs back. Smash cut to them on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with the classic, what is it? Boxes full of stuff from their desks, and Walter's been triple fired.
Yep. Which I'm surprised Lance didn't have more stuff, considering how long he's been there. He had a desk lamp.
I think that speaks to him that he doesn't, he's not at the office much. He keeps his stuff very impersonal because he's not there, and
he's not the sentimental type.
And so we find out that apparently when he used the serum to turn him back into a human again, he's temporarily stuck with baby hand.
With one baby hand, right?
Yes, one baby hand.
Not even 2. Just one. Well, so they're sitting there, and then they get black bagged, and they get put in a van, And then Reba McEntire is like, oh, we actually want Walter to lead a new team.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. This may be me being a pain in the you know what, but I was like, why? Why would they fire them and then black bag them and then offer them another job at the same agency?
Because they need them to be covert, even to their own agency.
Okay, well, that wasn't a very covert way.
That's what I thought.
I
don't know. Or it's that what's her name? Marcy just wanted to mess with them.
Could be, or they wanted to do the joke of, oh, we're gonna get our jobs back. Bam, they don't. I mean, it was a good joke.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then we see Walter and Lance out on a new mission, and apparently Walter's developed the technology or perfected the technology, so now he can he's got his own spy tuxedo, and he takes off the bow tie and spins it, and it becomes the formula Lance flies through it as a bird and then transforms back into a human. I was like, that is some quick transformation there, and I like that they improved on the tech.
And he somehow was able to keep his clothes this time.
It's true. So maybe he the tuxedo shrinks to fit his size and then comes back. I don't know. We saw this at screening, so we don't have detailed notes on what it looks like. But yeah.
But whatever. That last scene looked really good. That's the movie I wanted to see.
Well, if the movie does well, we get a sequel. Who knows?
So that's the end of the movie. But I want to talk to you now about the message of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a lot of kids' movies have messages. This one obviously had stuff like believe in yourself, don't worry about being weird. But another thing they had was about violence.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting, especially being a spy movie. And so all his gadgets were not offensive. They're more defensive and definitely non-lethal.
That's true. So, it keeps it going throughout the movie. Basically, Walter wants Lance to use non-violent or less lethal gadgets, whereas Lance just wants to use the ones that he knows. So the classic example, that explodes. The classic example is when he reaches for a grenade, he wants a grenade and not kitty glitter.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the beginning, when you see Lance operating on his own, he doesn't kill anybody because it's still a PG movie.
That's true. Huh. I didn't think about it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that this sort of debate works. It works when it's Daredevil versus the Punisher.
True. I think. Well, if it wasn't stuck to being a PG movie and they just showed him killing, it may have worked a little bit better. But it's it's a tricky balance.
As I mentioned, Daredevil versus Punisher talk about this, but it's also a criticism I've seen of Batman and Superman and other DC heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, I'm sure Christian is, but for those of you who aren't, the argument is that it doesn't make any sort of moral sense that Batman won't kill the Joker, because every time he doesn't kill the Joker, Joker kills like another 100 people or something. And same thing with Superman and like Doomsday or Darkseid or any of Superman's other villains.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the Marvel, very interesting that at least the movies, they make no compunction about killing.
Well, it's not that they have. I wouldn't say that. I would say that Marvel heroes try to avoid killing when they can, but acknowledge that sometimes you have to.
True.
But the argument that I would make, because I like Batman and Superman's no kill rule, and I think so. Grant Morrison explained, or I don't know if it's Grant Morrison, some DC writer, I don't remember which one, was like, these people, Superman and Batman and others, are allowed to be moral paragons because they don't exist in reality.
Interesting.
So in the real world, to take out dangerous people and dangerous organizations, you do have to compromise your values. Because that's just the reality. But in a fictional world like Spies in Disguise, you don't have to. Because the writers are always in control of everything, and they can make sure that people who won't kill like Walter can still accomplish their objectives. And no one needs to get hurt.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I also like the no kill rule. I actually like. I'm not always a fan of Grant Morrison stuff, but I like his take on that.
I think it's an interesting question, but I'm not sure this movie pulled it off as well as it could have.
Okay. I mean, I thought for a kids movie, it pulled it off. It pulled it off fine. Like, and it actually addressed that, because I mean, if you look at the Incredibles, they definitely kill a bunch of people.
The Incredibles do?
Yes.
Like
when they're in the first one, they're escaping from the lair. and what Dash is running it, being chased by the people, and then their ships explode.
Well, that was more like he just set them up into a situation where they could where they could kill themselves. Well,
that is posturing of, okay, did they kill me? Did I kill them, or did they happen to die because of something that happened that I did?
It's sort of like Golden Age Batman or the origin of the Joker, where Batman is fighting the Red Hood, and the Red Hood accidentally, finger quotes, falls into a vat full of acid, and Batman doesn't seem too bothered about it.
So, yeah, I would say they at least address it, whereas some other things, even the Incredibles, never actually address that.
Yeah,
I appreciated that they tried at least.
So maybe more like I think the message of the movie isn't so much killing versus not killing; it's try to find alternatives to hurting people as much as possible.
I think you might have something there. Yeah,
and I like that. Okay, so I think now it's time for our rating between 1 and 10 martinis.
Yeah, I don't think we had anything for spy fact versus spy fiction, except for the fact that the traffic in DC is much worse. But yeah, so let's go to our ratings. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I am going to be a little harsh because I try to really use the 1 to 10 scale as much as possible. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10 martinis because I will defend my position.
Yes.
I liked the acting and the animation looked good, but I felt like most of the jokes didn't land. And some of the emotional beats didn't quite land either.
All right. And I'm going to give it 6 out of 10 martinis because I had a fun time with it. And some of the jokes that didn't land for you did land for me, except for like the vomit stuff. That I was not a fan of that. But every other jokes, yeah, I liked it a lot. And I mean, I like this sort of goofy spy fun stuff.
All right. Well, it's all right. We're allowed to disagree. Would you recommend this movie to people? I would recommend it to people who love Will Smith.
Yes, and if you have a family and you're looking for a good movie to introduce your kids to the spy genre, this would be a good one.
Okay, sounds good.
So thanks for listening to the Spy-Fi Guys. You can find us on social media at the Spy-Fi Guys on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I've been Christian.
I've been Zach.
And we are the Spy-Fi Guys, signing off. Thank you for listening to the Spy-Fi Guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The theme song from this podcast is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Films, books, and television shows reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
This is a personal podcast. Any views, statements, or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the participants. They do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the participants may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.
You can find our podcast on social media at The Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.